Welcome to the Assemble Performance podcast. We have an awesome guest on this episode I'm really excited to talk to. Dr. Ashley Dwyer is a pharmacist who graduated from the University of Florida College of Pharmacy in 2014, a certified health coach, and a former NPC athlete. She's gone through her own journey of health issues and eventually left the traditional Western medicine model to start her own company in order to more effectively help her patients through holistic healing. She also holds various other certifications, including plant-based nutrition, health mindset coaching, prenatal and postpartum coaching, functional nutrition, and metabolic science. We actually met last month now, since it's the first, at the Real Coaches Summit, which I'm repping my shirt for today for the podcast.
So very nice.
Yep. It was a good summit. It was awesome, and it was great to meet you. So I'm really excited to have you on, Ashley. How you doing?
Well, same. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I can't believe the summit was like 2 weeks ago now, to be honest with you. Time is flying.
I know. Yeah. I had travel in whatever month, March and then April, and it feels like it was just yesterday. So yeah, super exciting. That was super powerful. And that was my first year. I think you went before though, right?
I've been all 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Iran can't get rid of me at this point, I guess.
Yeah. I already bought my ticket for next year. So it was a good time.
He hasn't announced it officially, but I'm actually speaking next year. So I'll see you there.
Okay. Exciting.
Yay.
Hopefully he doesn't care that I put this out.
No, he's fine. He's like, yeah, you can say stuff. He's like, I don't really care. Like, Aram.
Yeah, he did put a cryptic story out the other day with a ton of people tagged, so I figured that's what it was.
The speakers, yeah.
Yep, I figured. Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. I really like the nuance between your medical background and then some of the more functional holistic health stuff, because online that can be very one or the other. People get very argumentative about things.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk nuance and all things nuance. But before we get into it, myself and I'm sure a lot of others aren't really, or at least before I was preparing for this podcast, wasn't really up to speed with all of the in-depth medical training pharmacists get. Some people just think of pharmacists as people that give them medicine, and that's it. So I would like to go in depth a little bit into that. That way people can understand a little bit more of your medical background. So could you maybe briefly explain some of the stuff that pharmacists learn that people might not know about and kind of how in-depth that expertise is?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can only speak on the type of curriculum that the University of Florida puts out. And I will say the University of Florida, it's awesome. Go Gators. We just won basketball. Hooray. But they are more clinical based. So they prepare you for working in more of a residency standpoint in clinical pharmacy. So again, a lot of people don't know the different roles pharmacists can have. So we go through 4 years. It's a doctorate, 3 years in school and 1 year with like practical. So you're actually out working in different rotations every single month to get experience and practice in different atmospheres. So we go through a ton of drug knowledge, obviously, but we also go through disease states. So while we aren't technically able to diagnose and prescribe, we know all about it. We know, or I used to know, I feel like since then I've become very dumb and I'll explain that too. But I used to know, all the receptors in the body. You have to do all of the prereqs of like physics, organic chemistry, all of that. So you learn all of that in the body, how it works, what's first line, second line, what's off label, all of that. We have to take statistic classes and do journal clubs. So we know how to read journal articles and data and all of that. And all of that prepares you for either a job in retail pharmacy, which is what most people think pharmacists are, just like the standard Walgreens, CVS. And even then, like, I wish we went to 4 years of school just to put pills in a bottle. Like, I wish that was all it entailed. What they don't teach you is how to deal with the general public and insurance and doctor's offices. But then you can also go into staff hospital pharmacy, which is no people, but you're essentially just pushing out the drugs that the doctors and nurses order in the pharmacy and the hospital. You can go into clinical pharmacy, which is more ER, SICU, ICU, oncology, like specialty pharmacy. You could do nuclear pharmacy. There's so many. There's a lot. But basically, pharmacists know a lot about everything, but specifically drugs and what they do on the body and side effects. It's a lot of memorization.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to give people an idea that you have a very extensive medical background and medical training when we get into some of the topics around coaching and nutrition and things like that. And since you moved out of that role now officially, I wanted people to understand the background a little bit. So yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, so really we could start a few different places. I kind of wanted to go a little bit real quick into your background so people can kind of understand a little bit more about you as a person. So could you explain a little bit more about your athletic background before you got into bodybuilding and kind of that athletic experience that led you to today, really?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I always grew up kind of an athlete and playing sports. I was always like the tomboy as a girl who was like playing kickball and playing outside with the boys. I had a younger brother, so would always be just playing sports. Started playing sports in middle school and, went on to do 3 sports in high school. Didn't play at the college level, but like was always an athlete, enjoyed that, went to college for academics, and then still participated in like intramurals and like things like that. But having no idea about like a weightlifting background, I was a cardio queen, like a designated elliptical stairmaster cardio queen, and like weights were, whatever. And it wasn't until I found bodybuilding, because I had a friend who did it, and I was like, if you could do it, I could totally do it. And my competitiveness took over, and I was like, I want to do this and see, what I can do. Got into weight training, won my first show, got addicted to like the science behind it of like how to manipulate food and water and exercise and all of that to kind of get to your goal. And so I obviously was really into dietetics at that point. And I was even like, man, maybe I should quit pharmacy school and be a dietitian, because I was like really into nutrition. And I was like, no, I'm going to follow out my career and then finish school. It's already so many loans. And use this in my practice. Well, I did more shows as I was still in school. Don't recommend that in a doctorate program, by the way. Trying to study with no carbs is like, no. It's not. And then got out of pharmacy school and just realized in retail pharmacy, which is what I did, there was no ability to actually like counsel people in general, but much less on lifestyle changes and dietetics and all of that. So that kind of is what drafted the change of me like, okay, pharmacy is not my end all be all, but like, I don't know what else I'm going to do. I didn't even know coaching was a thing at that point. And then I had, like you said in my intro, like a slew of my own health issues from eating too little, overtraining, stress. I wanted to stay little forever, like I was as a competitor, and just completely threw off like thyroid, all hormones, glucose, cortisol, you name it, we had it. So that got me really passionate into this, but like always have just been active and athletic and wanting to like goal oriented, I guess you could say.
Totally. So what led you then to search out like being a pharmacist and go into pharmacy school? Because it sounds like you had a lot of athletic stuff, so the medical makes sense, but what drove you to pharmacy versus some of the other professions you could have gone towards?
Oh man. Well, let me ask you this. We're going to shout your age online. What year did you graduate high school?
I don't know, 2017.
Okay. Okay. So when I graduated high school, this is actually really funny. It was 2007.
Okay.
So back then, pharmacy was like the career that if you became a pharmacist, you were getting BMWs as a signing bonus. Like it was very respected, kind of like really in need. So I wanted to be in the medical profession. I love math and science, but I was like, I don't want to graduate at 30 something as a doctor. I don't want a ton of student loans. I don't want to be on call. So pharmacy at the time was like a great job for a woman, great hours, supposedly, and no on call, be done by 25. I was like, this is golden. And so that's why we did it. To be honest, it wasn't like my passion about drugs, but it was about helping people. And that was the avenue I chose to do it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. Made me shout my youth on the podcast.
That's fine though. Youth is good. Increase it. You're not that young.
No, yeah, I know it's fine. But yeah, I mean, I saw you're 2014 graduated. That's when I got my license. So
Yeah.
it's funny.
I love it. All right. I'm old. You're still in your
No,
prime.
you're not old. I don't think it's old. I feel young. You're not old. Yeah. So you started bodybuilding then while you were still in school, right? So what year would that have been around?
2011.
Okay. And then how long did you compete before you decided that you were going to move on?
I did 4 shows from 22 to 26 because I learned really quickly, like I said, you cannot compete while in school. So then I did that one, got until the summer, did 2 more, and then realized I didn't have enough time to like cut and prep in and out of school. So I stopped. And then I graduated pharmacy school and I was like, you know what? We're going to do 1 more. Now that like I'm in my career, I want to see what I can do. So my last one was actually at like 26, something like that. And then I definitely like hung up the competition heels after that.
Was there any specific reason you decided to move on? Or was it just like you felt like your time was done and you wanted to move on to something else?
So I don't know. I guess I don't know your listener base, but if anyone's like a competitor or wanting to be a competitor, like, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. There's a lot of sacrifices that go into it. It's very selfish. You can't really be social, or you have to be really strict when you are social. For women, it's really hard on hormone health. You may lose your period, you may do all of that. And at that point, I knew I wasn't going to go pro. Like, I wasn't into taking PEDs. So there was no way for me to continue competing at the NPC level without doing PEDs. So it was just more for me being there and having fun and seeing what I could get my body to. And then I was like, all right, we are ready to have fun. I'm done.
It had to be intoxicating to win you said you won your first one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazier now that I look back at the photos because, like, I was so disgustingly tiny, but the NPC shows were so different in 2011 versus 2025. Like, complete 9 day of what competitors look like. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. Intoxicating is a good word. You get addicted.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned your own health issues that you started to deal with due to, in the intro you sent over, extreme lifestyle habits was the term you used. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that started in the bodybuilding period then?
Oh, yeah. Are you familiar with like orthorexia nervosa?
Yes, slightly.
Yeah. So just like the extreme fixation on eating healthy. Like, if I had anything other than protein before bed, I had to like get up and do fasted cardio the next morning because like that apple I ate would instantly turn to body fat. Like, it was not cute. I was probably eating maybe 1,400 calories a day, training 6 or 7 days a week, fasted cardio along with like I would do fasted cardio, eat a rice cake with almond butter or PB2, like something that wasn't even substantial, and then go do like an hour leg workout. Why? Why were we doing that? Compensatory behaviors were insane. So it was just so strict, and I ended up feeling like crap. Like, I would drink a venti coffee at work, say from Starbucks, because it was right next door, and I would still fall asleep. It was almost like I was narcoleptic. So I had to go in and get everything tested, and there it all was. There, everything was just all a wreck. A literal mess.
Was it a very quick transition? Like, did you get those numbers and realize I have to stop this, or was it more gradual? And was that maybe one of the first or last signs you got?
That was the big wake up call. I will say, like, as a pharmacist, you think that you're being healthy, you're working out, you look the part, right? Like, you have a 6 pack and 8 pack, like, people are coming to you for fitness advice. And then you're sitting on like a doctor's table being like, this is all the stuff going on with you. And this is why you feel like crap and you need medication. And I'm like, damn, like, I just, like, what? Like, it was kind of like, how did I let this happen? I'm supposed to be health and work in the health field. So it was like the final wake up call. And then part of my story, like, I'm not going to go full into detail unless you want to, but I essentially then got put on medication right away, like thyroid meds, got put on some other things, taken off of other things, like tried progesterone for a little while, all the hormone stuff. And then it wasn't until like over the next 5 years, I probably went through 3 PCPs, endocrinologists, finally tried a functional medicine. And it wasn't until I actually, like, 4 years later, 5 years later, changed my lifestyle and like ate more and had more carbs and cut down training and all of that, that I actually started feeling better. So that's what kind of got me into doing the holistic functional route that I do now.
Yeah, it seems like you were somewhat forced into it then just by trying everything else. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, Western medicine, if you've ever worked with anyone who has thyroid issues or anyone listening who has thyroid issues, they'll just like put you on levothyroxine to start and then increase and increase and increase your dose. And if you're still not getting it right, they'll put you on T3 also. And then you'll be like hyperthyroid. And then those symptoms are insane. So it was just like so hard playing around with the medication and absolutely feeling like crap. And when you're a woman and you have these crazy pharmacy hours and like you literally need to stay awake or else you can potentially kill someone, like, to put it lightly, you're losing your hair, like, it's a lot. So to go through that for years when really it was just like lifestyle, was kind of like Western medicine had failed me. So
yeah. So I was going to ask you if you felt some resistance at first, but you probably didn't because you were probably just trying to try anything, right?
no, I mean, what I knew at the time, I was like, okay, low thyroid, that means thyroid meds, like in pharmacy school, I will say you're not taught, I mean, really, either are doctors, you're not taught nutrition. You're not taught, they give you the standard, like 150 minutes of exercise a week, like do this DASH diet, Mediterranean diet, but you're not taught how much you should actually eat, the importance of certain things. So it really was just like, okay, I guess this is what I do because this is what my numbers say, you know? Now I know so much better and wish I knew this back then, but that's why we teach women now.
Yeah, I told my wife, I think it was a year ago, that if I never got married, I would have been so much less upset at things because at least her experience and all my women friends, just a lot of medical gaslighting sometimes with things.
Mhm.
And yeah, I would be, I'd be fuming and she'd be like, this is just how, I have to deal with things. And yeah, it was a
This
lot.
is how it is. I know it's so sad, but so true.
Yep. So this whole time you're going through this, were you still working at the pharmacy the whole time?
I was, yes.
How long did you work in the pharmacy world?
6.5 years. I quit in 2020, like November of the pandemic.
Okay.
It was time. The pandemic was insanity.
I'm sure, yeah, especially for you as a pharmacist, that'd be crazy.
And I worked in a grocery store. So I don't know where you're located, but it was a Publix. And like
Okay,
people were
yep.
just coming to the grocery store to hang out, to get out of the house. And we're like, go home.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yep.
stop. Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, we went to Publix when I lived in Florida, and they actually just opened one here in Virginia Beach. So we went and got subs the other day. So,
Amazing.
yep.
I'm so jealous. I'm in Texas now and I have no Florida. I have no
Oh,
Publix.
man.
No, no.
When did you start to realize that working as a pharmacist might not be for you?
2 months after graduation.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what was that journey then? Because 6 years is a good amount of time in your life.
Well, I mean, you do this career, right? You do all this school for it, and then you have all these loans when you come out, and you're like, what else am I gonna do? Like maybe I just switch companies. So I worked for Walgreens at first, made it 3 years before I was like, I gotta try something better. Got into Publix, which was better. If you think about it, like nobody really cares about waiting around in the grocery store for a prescription. They go shopping, there's stuff to do. A Walgreens, there's not really anything to do. There's also no drive-through in a Publix, or there wasn't when I was there. So we didn't have that stress either. But it was more along the lines of like, okay, I am realizing I'm not getting to actually use my skills. I'm using more of my time arguing with insurance companies, or like people are just, nobody's happy coming into the pharmacy, you know? Nobody feels great coming into the pharmacy unless those, handful of patients we had coming in to pick up like Viagra and Cialis. I did work at like a Boca pharmacy in South Florida, so we had our fair share. It just wasn't, I was like, this can't be all that there is to do, you know? So I was just exploring other options. And then I had no desire to be a coach or start my own business. Like I'm usually the risk adverse, not the entrepreneurial type.
Mm.
So that was like a wild transition for me. But
Yeah, how long did it take you to realize you wanted to start coaching? And I guess how did that parallel with your own health journey at the time then?
oh, this is funny. So I knowing your age, when I was 28, all of my friends were getting married. Like all of my girlfriends were getting married. And I kid you not, I had like 8 or 9 weddings in one year. Talk
Mm.
about going into debt for your friends' weddings. And since I was the fitness friend, they were like, I need help losing weight for my wedding. Like, can you help me? And I was like, sure. So I would help them, we'd give them like nutrition stuff and plans, and it all worked really well. And they were like, you should do this for a living. And I was like, I have a full ass job. Like, there's no way I can
Uh,
do this. And so I did it and I sat on it for a little while. And then eventually, I think it was 2018, I finally sat down, like created a domain name and Instagram pages, and was like, okay, cool, I'm going to coach, but I only coach brides. So my story is so crazy. Like I only coached brides and didn't want them to crash diet like I did for my shows and end up the way I was. And then over the years, it just has transitioned into this like functional health coaching that it is.
mm.
Yeah.
You mentioned not being risk averse and having the steady job. So can you talk me through kind of the internal struggle and the time you finally chose to leave being a pharmacist and kind of how that risk assessment went for you?
Yeah. Cause if you have anyone who's also a coach and still working their job, I did both for 2 years before I did both for 2 years before I finally left. And it was such a giant, crazy step for me. Cause I mean, even as a pharmacist, like I had dropped down to part-time. So I cut my hours a little bit. So I had more time for coaching. And then 2 things happened. One, I got so busy that there was no way for me to grow anymore until I freed up more of my time. So I had to leave. Like I couldn't do any more check-ins. I couldn't do any more products, like nothing like that. And then two, my boyfriend at the time, and I'm very thankful for this, he was like an Excel whiz. So he had built me this spreadsheet that I put in my income or put in my plans, my people that I closed, and it automatically calculated like the reoccurring revenue I had coming in the next couple months. So seeing those numbers in my head of like, oh, I have more than what I'm bringing home in a paycheck coming in from coaching, I think it's okay if I leave. And so just having that data in front of me, since I am risk adverse, I need the data and the facts, really was like, okay, it's time to like bet on myself. We already have money coming in. I'm already doing okay. If I free up more time, I know I'll do better. And then you just kind of put in your 2 weeks and pray.
So you mentioned being a pharmacist, you didn't really feel like you were using your skills to the fullest potential. So when you started coaching, was it pretty immediate? Like, oh, this is where I can flourish with the things I'm passionate about?
Oh yeah. And then I love school and love learning, like definitely a nerd. So doing the certifications, like getting, even right now, I'm fascinated with gut health. So I'm just like putting myself through learning a bunch of things. I want to take a gut health cert. So I tend to like, this is probably ADD, but I tend to hyperfixate on things and then learn all about them and then want to expand in those areas. So it's definitely helping me grow as a person, as an educator, as a coach, all of that. And then having a team is another whole learning experience. But it's been so awesome, and I will never ever ever regret quitting pharmacy ever.
That's awesome. Yeah, when it came to that point to how did you know when it was time to start growing a team versus doing it on your own and kind of maybe working longer hours or charging more, whatever else you could have done yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting because back then the model, I mean, in 2020, 2021, everyone was growing and scaling because the pandemic was an awesome time for coaches, especially online coaches. You could like not throw any type of advertisement out there and you would have a bunch of people coming in your way, right?
Mm,
Not like that anymore. So I had about 50 clients at the time, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore on my own. Like, there's no place to put people. So I'm going to hire my first coach. And she was awesome. And then it was so fun for me to bring someone in and be like, okay, you go over there. Like, we're done. I don't have to do all the stuff. And then it almost became, again, addicting of like, oh, let's just grow and scale and get more coaches and more coaches. And then honestly, it wasn't until the end of last year that I realized like, I don't want the volume model anymore. I want the like small knit team exclusivity, like quality product. I don't want to like chase numbers and KPIs and metrics and all that anymore. I want to just focus on coaching and like helping women how I should. So I think it's all a transition. Like you'll find what you like and what you don't like, but I definitely love having a team versus being a solopreneur. It's way more fun.
I'm sure. Yeah. How
Mhm.
did you balance everything when you were working? I find I've got some clients that I was speaking with, and he was like, dude, I tell myself I'm busy, and then I remind myself all the things you have on your plate, and I go work out anyways. And so when you were running both, it sounds like you were part-time, so it might not have been as crazy as doing like a full-time, but I'm sure you did full-time for a little bit. So could you maybe walk us through that?
Yeah. So the way the pharmacy schedule was set up, my part-time was still 30 hours. So I only docked off one day of working. My shifts were still 11 to 12-hour shifts.
Mm,
So I would still be doing like the normal schedule was 2 days on, 2 days off, and every other weekend. So I would probably do 2 days on every other weekend and like one day the following week, right? So I would work out on the days that I didn't work. I would get up in the morning and go straight to the gym. So I never worked on a pharmacy day because that was already 11 to 12 hours on my feet. Wasn't going to do it. I needed the sleep. And then, not that any of my pharmacy people know now, but I would do check ins while I was also working at the pharmacy if I could fit them in.
mm,
So I was not, there was no work life balance. There was working after work, there was working on my days off, there was working on the weekends. There is no balance when you're trying to grow both.
yep.
Mm-mm.
I agree for sure.
I'm like thinking now, I'm like, do I have balance now? I do have better balance now. But yeah. There was none to get out because you're just trying to grow so much to finally leave one of those behind, you know?
uh,
So I still fit in. I still do this to this day. I put my workouts in my calendar so that they're meetings, so that I don't skip them. I recommend my clients do that. I use meal prep services back then a little bit to kind of like lighten the load of meal prep.
mm.
So just different convenience factors, but there was no chill.
Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to transition a little more into client work now and stuff. So
Mhm.
you had mentioned, I think it was on your site. So I have a quote here that many of the illnesses we dispense medications for are preventable and can be managed or alleviated with lifestyle modifications and a better diet. So I agree with that 100%. So I'd like to talk about that a little more. Could you give maybe a few examples of general examples? Every single person's different, not medical advice, the whole shebang, but general examples of things that made you take a step back and realize like, oh, this is maybe not treating the actual root of the problem, and this person probably deserves better.
So first, right out the gate, because we work with a lot of women with PCOS, doctors will immediately throw them on birth control to balance their hormones. It's a giant band-aid. It's not doing anything that we need help with. So that right out the gate is not fixing the problem at all. What else? If someone has like GERD or acid reflux, they throw them on like a PPI, omeprazole, pantoprazole, something over the counter. That's not inherently fixing the main problem. It's just, again, making them feel better. Those antacids or PPIs are only really supposed to be taken for like 2 weeks, but doctors keep people on it for life. So that's
Mm.
also fun.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah. And then even high blood pressure, like the whole thing is like put them on blood pressure medication and remove salt, but that's also not the whole picture either. Like we usually have some insulin resistance and metabolic issues going on. We usually have some potassium that we need to increase. So again, there's just a lot of like faulty. You have to think about it this way though. Like doctors, first of all, nobody's paid by big pharma, or at least I never was, to do any type of flu shots. I got out before the COVID vaccine, but doctors learn one way to do things by school. So if we are indoctrinated, it's literally because of school. It's not because we all came together and we're like, let's get one over on clients and patients. But Western medicine is treating body systems and treating like specific symptoms and treating symptoms. It's not visualizing the body as a whole and how everything works together. So maybe like a side effect down the line of like, oh, this could be kidney protective, put them on this, or statins could be heart protective, put them on that for something else. That's the best we're going to get. Nobody's really looking at diet and lifestyle factors. That's what happened to me. Like if I just ate more and increased my carbohydrates, like my fasting glucose was, I believe, in the 50s, which is terrible.
Uh-huh.
No wonder I was so exhausted. I was not eating carbs because carbs were bad at the time, right?
Hmm.
So if I had just increased that, because your body needs glucose for T4 to T3 conversion, like not to get too super sciencey, but like this would be so much better. So this is where I think we're missing the mark and where like coaches can do amazing work.
Yeah, totally. I've heard a lot of people talk about, from a medicine perspective, behavior change is a huge component. So if you have a whole population, only a certain percentage of them are actually going to do lifestyle modification. Can we still reduce the risk of mortality by medicine? Which I'm not a doctor, never claimed to be a doctor. I just find that as an interesting talking point. Obviously, the people that you work with are probably ready to make a change because they're reaching out, right? So, or maybe not. Maybe
Yes
they're
and
reaching out
no.
and they're not quite ready.
Yes and no. Yeah. I think like what you're saying, behavior and mindset is whether you're a nutrition, fitness coach, personal trainer, like whatever avenue of coaching you do, or life coach or anything, it's not just diet and lifestyle. Like it's not just diet and fitness. Like you can hand me a fitness plan and you can hand me a meal plan and I still have to do it. I still have to navigate travel and vacations and I still have to change my schedule and I still have to rewire the way I think about food and how I use it to cope with stress. I still have to like rewire the way my mom like told me that everything I ate was going to sit on my hips and be fat. Like, are you really going to eat that? So a lot of it comes down to mental first. And so even with our clients who have a functional issue and they really want help with it, if we don't tackle the mental mindset and their habits first, we're never going to get them to follow the protocol. So whether you're in medicine or coaching, like it's the same thing. You have to like tap into that client why per se and disrupt their entire life. They're going to need an entire overhaul. And that's really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I've been diving a lot more into psychology and behavior change work. Previously, I worked with a lot of really high performers that just needed pulled back a little bit. Now I'm getting more general population, people that need a little bit more behavior change work and not just told to sleep more and relax. And I'm really fascinated by the fine line of scope of practice between a coach and like a therapist, right? I'd be curious to hear your take on, some of these things, right? How your parents talked to you when you were a kid, how they modeled food, all this stuff. It can become kind of a fine line. And
Yeah.
so how do you navigate that?
So we like, because we have to remember we're not therapists, right? And we have to really, really edge like tiptoe on that line. So I'll ask a client like maybe what is the self-sabotage reason? We'll get into that a little bit, or we'll get into where this came from. But when she tells me, I'm not going to be like, let's dive into that. Let's explore that. I will instead say, okay, like, thank you for sharing with me. Like, I could see how this would be the thing, and kind of help them knowing what I know. But I'm not going to go into like the deeper reason of why that happened in their childhood, because that's not anything that we're trained for. We just had to get she had a baby and all of this, but we had a mental health professional on staff that we did monthly meetings with, so that if clients had an issue they wanted to dive into or speak more about with like emotional eating regards, they could attend those calls. But I do recommend clients work hand in hand with a therapist sometimes, especially women, to dive into some of these deep-seated emotional eating type of things, because it's very prevalent. I'm sure you're seeing that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And it
Mhm.
becomes interesting because even if you gave a client all the behavior change information, they still have to work through the process and it still takes time. So how
Mhm.
do you, when clients come to you, how do you educate them or guide them through that process? Maybe they come to you and they're like, hey, I want, 12 weeks from now. Like I'm not disciplined enough. Just tell me what to do. 12 weeks from now, I'll be fine. When really there's maybe a lot of underneath the hood things that need worked on and it's going to be a longer process.
Yeah, I mean, expectation setting is one of the best things we can do, especially on like consult calls. So I mean, I even present myself outwardly online. Like, I am not a fat loss coach. Like, do not come to me for a quick 12-week program. Like, that is not what we do. So when we do get clients on the phone who are like, I just want to do this for like 12 weeks and get abs by summer, and like, that's all I want. And I'm like, we're not your team, you know? So I definitely turn people away, and expectations set at the beginning, manage expectations, and kind of just tell them what it's going to look like, what the process is going to look like, walk them through it. I think being as transparent as possible is the goal. And then they have to decide if they're willing to set in on that, or if they're willing, because some women come into us just like the ones you had before, overtraining and under eating. And I'm like, you got to go through maintenance for a while. We got to reverse you. And that's uncomfortable. You still want to lose weight. And you're like, but I have to spend 4 months like not getting my goal. So just kind of, at that point, it's a conversation of what's your alternative? You're already doing this, you're already trying this hard. This is the work you're missing, especially if they're in their 30s. So a lot of that, it's a lot of expectation management, education, and then ultimately like asking a lot of questions.
Mm, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. When it comes to, I'm assuming you probably don't get a lot of these just based on how you do things, but just with your background, I thought I'd ask, there are people that are on the opposite end of the spectrum who say all medication is bad. I'm not going to take anything, all diet and lifestyle. Do you run into people like that a lot, or not really attract those clients given your kind of your background?
No, I definitely have people who, I mean, I'm judging my background. I don't like to take a lot of medications or unnecessary supplements, I want to get clients off of meds. So I do appreciate the clients who come to me and they're like, I don't want to take anything. I want to try this. And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. If we can get these lab values in order with diet and lifestyle, like obviously we're going to request lab work when they come to us. And if it's not absolutely terrible, then we'll try the lifestyle changes first. And if they're still bad by like 6 months later, 3 to 6 months later, then it's like, okay, we have to have a real discussion about potentially starting thyroid medication, potentially starting cholesterol medication.
Mm.
And so I'll always try with someone first, but they have to know the risks that they're bringing on.
Yeah, it sounds like the difference is you're really empowering them with a plan and information versus just take this and we'll just increase the dose if we need to and you'll have it forever and that's that.
Yeah, no, that was pharmacy. That was just handing out band-aids over the counter, and it got to be morally burnt out. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I went to the pharmacy to pick up, my son was sick and to pick up some meds and they had a sign. I literally saw the sign. I was like, this is so sad. It said, the people giving you your meds are humans too. Like, please be nice. And I was just like, dude, this sucks.
No, it was not. It was the most thankless like career.
Yeah. I just, it stands up to me. It was like a month ago, and I just saw that sign and I was like, holy cow, dude.
That's actually impressive that they have that out there. I'm surprised management let them put that there.
It was a Walgreens like branded thing. So
Listen, Justin, if I could write a book on my pharmacy experience and publish it, it would purely be about the 3 years I worked at Walgreens. There wouldn't even be enough material for Publix, but Walgreens, man, oh, I have some stories. It would be fun. So they go through a lot.
I'm sure. Yeah. Any front facing customer service role, especially with people that are probably sick, not feeling great, it's got to be
I
rough.
mean, I got like spit on via drive-through, so it landed on the glass, and you're just sitting there looking at the person like,
Wow.
no, there's so many things. We had to call the cops so many times. It's crazy.
You're like, I'm a trained professional and I have to deal with this stuff. That's
Mhm.
rough.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask you about hormones. They're a big buzzword online. Everybody talks about hormones. And so can you explain what hormone health, hormone optimization looks like in practice and, some solid advice and solid information, not just random person on Instagram information?
Okay, so I mean, to be general, it's a little hard, right? Hormones are super important. It's how our body runs and how we feel good. There's so many necessary ones. Like cortisol is currently being demonized on the internet. I have a free training coming out on that soon. We need cortisol. If you didn't have cortisol, like I'm sorry, but you'd have zero adrenaline instincts, nothing. So we need it, and it's being like demonized by these MLM influencers trying to sell supplements. And I hate it because most people don't have a cortisol like Cushing's disease type of like issue, but it's being presented that way. So there's also a lot of misinformation and marketing. It's all marketing around like hormone balancing supplements. There's no way to balance your hormones. It's not a thing. It's not like a scale and everything like acts nicely once they're in balance. You just want optimal levels. Like men, you want optimal testosterone levels. The problem is you have, and where women get gaslit, even men get gaslit, you have these normal ranges when it comes to lab values, and the normal ranges keep expanding. So I think like normal testosterone is like 250, and that's okay. But I'm sure if you had a testosterone of 250, you'd feel like shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So optimal, we want like 800. So for women, and even for all of these disease states, we have like, oh, your thyroid's normal, it's 3.5 as a TSH. Like we want your TSH around 1, you know? So there's different ways that we want hormones in an optimal range, but never balanced. So if something is low or is high, we have to figure out like why it's high or why it's low and then change that. One of the only hormones, and people don't even really know this is a hormone, that can be fixed by supplementation is vitamin D. Like vitamin D is a hormone. You can go outside. I know people who spend so much time outside, but they still don't convert correctly to the active form of vitamin D, and they're still low on their vitamin D tests. So you just take vitamin D over the counter. We're good to go. Most of the time, it helps most people. But as far as like sex hormones, thyroid hormones, cortisol, it's mostly a stress balancing act. So the only thing you want to balance is your stressors, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So for us, and for me back in the day, it was overtraining, under eating, stressful pharmacy job, not a lot of sleep, alcohol, because I was in my 20s and partying in South Florida.
Mm.
It was not a good time, or it was a good time, but not a good time. So I have all these stressors that are just tearing down all my other hormones, making my thyroid low, sex hormones low. So if I wanted to bring those back up, I have to get rid of the other stressors and do more parasympathetic, relaxing activities. And that's where my life is now. So the hormone thing is all become a marketing ploy to sell women supplements because we think it sounds sciencey and smart, but that's how you know people really don't understand hormones.
Yeah,
They don't understand.
I'm personally currently trying to do more relaxation. I was just outside before our podcast, actually, just relaxing midday because
There
I
you
got
go.
into kind of a cycle of crazy busy work. But I'd be curious to hear if someone's listening to this, especially a woman, since it sounds like that's mainly where you work, and they're wondering if their hormones might be off, they might need checked. I'd be curious to hear some potential red flags somebody would look for. And I'll give a example. I had an athlete last year, I think. Time flies, but it was early last year. We worked together. She was in menopause, and we worked together for, I think it was a couple months. She was crushing everything, still felt horrible. Nothing was changing. And I finally was like, "You're crushing everything. We've done everything we should do. Like, I think you should go to the doctor." and get your levels checked and stuff. Like, I'm not a physician. This is not my area. Anyway, she ended up going on this whole hormone health thing. Her stuff was way off, and now she's crushing and feeling great. And I'm glad that I referred her out and had that intuition, but also am like, man, is there any way I could have seen this sooner and maybe recommended sooner? Because it was, 2-3 months of work and nothing changing when I finally was like, you should get this checked out. So since then, I've had that in the back of my mind of like, what are these maybe potential red flags to look for?
Yeah. Well, I have 2 questions for you. One, how old was she?
50, I'd have to look back at
Okay.
the
I didn't know
exact
50.
age. Yep.
Did she end up starting HRT?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So that's something different entirely also. So we have like the pre-menopausal childbearing hormone issues, and then we
Yep.
have the perimenopause menopause issues. So you can almost bet that every woman 43 and above is going through some type of perimenopause, right?
Mhm.
So this is going to make things a little bit more challenging. And then after 50, you can almost guarantee they're in menopause or fully almost in that transition. So some of the things to look out for, I mean, I think you did everything correctly. The only thing that you could have done was maybe ask for labs at the beginning if you're comfortable with that, or, have a lab thing first, because then you would know where they were when you started and maybe be able to pick up some of those signs from the blood work. For example, like women who are going through perimenopause and menopause, they're going to have lower estrogen. They're going to have lower testosterone. So decreased insulin sensitivity. And we all know like that sucks if we can't really eat carbs. Lower BMR, harder time putting on muscle, more fatigue, sleep issues, cravings. And then you're also going to see in menopause like a really high LH and FSH. So that's how you like almost can know they're in menopause.
Mm.
So if you're doing everything right, they're getting in their steps, they're weight training, they're hitting protein, they're hitting fiber, like they're hitting their calorie deficit, and you're not seeing results, I think you did the absolute right thing by referring her and getting her labs. And that's really the only way to know, unless you do the labs at the beginning. So I don't think there was any like harm or foul in what you did at all. That's what most coaches should do. And then she started feeling better because she started supplementing with hormones, right?
Yep.
But if she didn't, then it would be a harder push to figure out. I think where things get harder is menopause is not perimenopause, and menopause doesn't mean it's like a death sentence for women's goals. It just means you have to be so much more dialed in than the average person. You have to be so much more careful about stress, so much more careful about overeating, hitting protein, keeping muscle density up. So it's just more effort is involved to get the same results that someone my age wouldn't have to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then for the non, 40 and below women, what kind of things would you be looking for that may be red flags? Would it be total stress load, how they're feeling? Just kind of give me the rundown there.
Yeah, when we get on consult calls, like I will ask what their current intake is, run me through a current day of eating, what's your exercise regimen look like? I will have them rate their perceived stress from 1 to 10, and 10 being the highest. So that way I can get a sense of like what family life, work life, all that looks like with deadlines. And then based on their sleep, their toxic load, their nutrition, their training, I can add on non-perceived stress and just kind of see what's going on. So I'll get definitely a sense of their stressors and how that's going. We request lab work at the beginning for them to send me anything, and we look over that. We also have them do a 5-day log of everything they're eating and drinking before starting with us. So we do have a lot of wiggle room and like intake forms that we get to know a lot about them ahead of time. But definitely have had clients where they're doing everything right, like you're saying, and we're not seeing like results at all. And we'll send them for blood work, and then we'll be like, okay, your thyroid is now this. Like, this is probably why we're not seeing results. And you'd expect it to be a little low and not optimal when you're in a calorie deficit, but like not that out of range, right? Like I'm talking like a TSH of 6, like you wouldn't expect that. So then we have to work on other measures, but that's likely why they're not seeing results, or like crazy insulin resistant numbers. And they're like, I don't have diabetes. And then you get their scores back and you're like, okay, but you're this close. Like, we're right on the edge. So then we have to change the way they're eating. Yeah. I would say for most people, protein, fiber, calorie deficit, strength training, and sleep. If you're doing all of those things, and obviously like 8K steps at least, if you're doing all of those things and you're really consistent with it and you're tracking correctly and you're not seeing results, let's get some blood work. Like, let's figure out
Hmm.
what's going on.
And do you find people have a concern, kind of chicken and the egg scenario, where is it my hormones that need fixed so my lifestyle can change and I can feel better, or is it my lifestyle? Obviously, you and I are on the same page of how things run, but I've talked to men sometimes who are like, yeah, my testosterone's low. The doctor wants me to lose weight and change my lifestyle, but I feel like if my testosterone was better, I would be more motivated to do these things anyways. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
No, for the general client, it's 1,000%. My hormones are the reason I can't do XYZ.
Mm.
So then I have to, that's why I market like it's not your hormones, it's this. And then we just kind of show them how what they're doing is impacting their hormones. And then they're like,
Mm.
oh, and like they understand the lifestyle changes they need to make.
Yeah, do you find education works well for that buy-in, or do you do anything in the first few weeks to really solidify that buy-in to the process?
Education, a really transparent consult call.
Mm.
I take all of our discovery calls. If you don't know me, I don't sugarcoat anything. So we're going to dive in real deep on what's going on. And I mean, obviously offer empathy and all of those things so that it's like, here's how we can be better. And a lot of people don't even know where they're making the wrong mistake. Like we have a lot of women who wake up early and skip breakfast because they think that's what they've been told to do. And if you're of childbearing age, like I don't want you fasting. Like I don't want you fasting. So we fix a little bit of that. They have a lot of caffeine on empty stomach. They work out on an empty stomach. And I'm like, okay, this is what we need to, like, they're really simple shifts sometimes. So then they're just like, oh man. And you do get that point where you feel like they feel like, dang, I should have known that, or I feel dumb. And I'm like, don't feel dumb. Like, this is what the internet does to people. This is why we're here. I mean, I felt dumb as a pharmacist and a bodybuilder competitor, like getting all these diagnoses, it's just what you don't know what you don't know. So education, I think, is the key to understanding. We have like a saying, you've heard the saying, trust the process.
Yep.
I don't say that in my company. I say understand the process because clients will be more inclined to stick with it if they're explained how it
Mm.
works instead of just like do what I say because I know it's going to work. We break it
I
down.
love that.
Mhm.
That's really powerful.
Thanks.
You mentioned the internet making people feel dumb. Something I wanted to ask you before, you said that you, in the midst of your kind of bodybuilding extreme lifestyle portion of your life, felt this need to feel small all the time, even when you weren't competing. Do you feel like working with clients and stuff now, do you think that's gotten worse as social media has been more prevalent? I know for the male side, like the steroid use in young men has risen drastically on social media, which causes a lot of body image issues with a lot of men that I talk to. So I'd be curious to hear your take on that with women.
No, even though I'm sure you go to the gym now and you see a bunch more women taking up like benches and squat racks and all of that, and I love it. Like I love to see women working out more, but I think still for the average woman and the people that we see, it's more like I just want to be small. I want to be skinny. I want to be back to my high school weight. And I'm like, girlfriend, you have 3 kids and you're like in your 40s. We're not going back to that 18-year-old weight, Like I don't even think you remember what that's like. So but they still want to be really small. And it doesn't help that women's trends change so much. Like, I don't know if you know, but in the 90s, like the show Friends.
Oh yeah, I love Friends.
Okay. So everybody in Friends, like Monica, Rachel, they're all stick skinny because that was what was in shape. That was trendy back then, is to be like really thin. And then we had the Kardashians. So then everyone wanted to be thick and curvaceous. And now it's going back to like heroin chic.
Mm.
So super thin again. And you have all this, you just have young girls and women just wanting to be small again. And so we do have to battle that with like, let's focus on being strong, not thin. Like, let's focus on strong over skinny, or, because I was even at my thinnest and that was my unhealthiest. So
Yeah, that's so interesting because my sounding board is fitness online, and I see the opposite from the woman's side. Who's the big rugby athlete? She posts a ton of things about.
Ilana,
Yeah.
like Ilona, like I know how to spell her name, but
Uh-huh.
I'm like, can I say it?
And then all the other coaches, obviously, that I follow talk about, taking up space, having muscle as a woman. So for me, it seems like it's not that way, but I guess I do have to remind myself often, Gen Pop doesn't have the same algorithm I have.
Gen Pop still thinks that carbs are bad. You're going to get bulky if you lift weights. Like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, like I wish, can someone teach me how to get bulky? I'm trying. It's taking so long.
Yep. Yeah, I like to pull up natural bodybuilding like pros and be like, these people dedicate their lives to training without steroids. and that's why they look this way. But
That's a good idea. I've never done that
yeah.
actually with a client.
Well, a lot of people think like regular bodybuilding for on the male side. They think of like the Chris Bumsteads and stuff that are
Yeah.
genetic freaks and take steroids. And obviously, that's no moral statement. That's their sport. But they don't have a realistic view of like, that's why I pull natural bodybuilding up. These people are tested, you know.
Super smart idea. Yeah. I've done this exercise before with my clients too, where I'm like, okay, send me a picture of the goal body you want. And it's always some like photo shoot, fitness model, something. And I'm like, you realize they don't even look like that after their photo shoot or once they get on stage. And I think that's where the disconnect is like, oh, you don't keep this all year long, or they don't, so.
Yeah. So you mentioned labs a few times. I wanted to ask, there's a lot of services nowadays where you can get labs. Some of them even offer you an app with like recommended lifestyle changes. So where do you tend to send clients to get their labs? Do you just send them to their doc? Is there like an online place you send them to?
Yeah, so both. If they can go through insurance, they have a doctor who's really receptive to like then coming in and being like, I need these labs run, and their doctor will run them, and they want to go through insurance. We do it that way. That doesn't always work.
Right.
And then I have a partnership with a company where we put together panels, and I will send clients to order labs through there, and then they'll go to a lab corp to get them drawn. They'll send us the results, and then we will interpret them.
Okay, solid.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask before we run out of time and stuff, I wanted to ask, you've got your health mindset coaching certification. We talked about behavior change a little bit. I'd be interested to hear, especially with your background with pharmacology, your thoughts on the relationship between psychology and physiology. Obviously, you understand like placebo and nocebo effects in drug trials. They're very powerful. And I just think the way, our mindset impacts our life in such a large way. I just love this topic. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as far as how it impacts clients, day-to-day physical symptoms, physical abilities.
I mean, when we were talking earlier and I was like, no, mindset and behavior is like what you need. Absolutely. I almost brought up that certification and I was like, if you haven't taken this, you should. It is amazing. I even have my assistant coaches take it. Like I've sent coaches to take it because I think it's just so helpful in going over like fixed versus growth mindsets, setting better goals, all of it in the way of like psychological thinking is really helpful. That's where we got asking a bunch of questions instead of just like telling a client what to do. I highly recommend it. I think that, I mean, I know Casey, she's now become a close friend since I've taken her certification, which is funny, but they already closed spring. But if you do have the opportunity to take it in fall, I would recommend it to everybody. It's awesome. But I think you have to start here and know these skills to even get clients to do the plan, right? Yep. Or handle their check-in feedback, struggling, all that.
Yeah, do you deal with clients maybe very neurotic about little things that are causing symptoms in their day-to-day life that how do you guide people through that, about, hey, this might not matter as much as you think it does?
Honestly, the scale is a big one.
Oh,
For
yeah.
our clients and like seeing the fluctuations on the scale. So sometimes we'll try our best to educate and just try and say like have them weigh daily and see the fluctuations and become desensitized to it. Or there's times I have to remove the scale for a couple weeks and then we don't use it at all. And then you just focus on like how your clothes are fitting and your measurements. And we kind of take away the power from it. But as someone who used to be very neurotic about tracking everything and being so precise, I think that's a detriment to results. Like the stress you're putting on yourself and the pressure is not helping cortisol levels, right? It's not helping the stress. And so reminding them of that kind of helps, but just more education or stopping them from macro tracking if they're becoming too neurotic about tracking. Like we got to back off of certain things.
Right. Yeah, when it comes to stress management, do you find you generally remove stressors, or do you find you kind of maybe guide clients in a way to care less about certain things without completely removing them?
Both. We definitely implement more parasympathetic activity, more sunshine when you wake up, more grounding, more breath work, finding an activity that you like to get into like a flow state, taking more time to, like I just had a conversation with a client, like when the coffee's brewing, instead of like she has a Keurig, right? So it only takes like 30 seconds. Instead of going to unload the dishwasher, sweeping the floor, doing something else in that time, like just breathe for those 30 seconds. And she's having the hardest time with it. And I'm like, this is why you need to do it. So doing that, we do it so much with our clients that I built out a 6 week course on like stress and recovery. So we have stress tracking, we have journal prompts, we have education twice or 3 times a week, depending on the week, of just like, this is how stuff helps stress. This is what you can do. There's so much, but it's such a giant impact on people that I think most in our hustle culture we have nowadays could benefit from chilling out a little.
Yeah, 100%. I say that, yeah, very personally right now. Definitely.
Justin, what do you need?
I know, right? Yeah, I'm always, taking time with my coffee outside now versus getting right to client check-ins or emails at 5 a.m. Right.
Honestly, that's all you need to do. Those small things add up so much.
Yep.
Mhm.
So if someone's listening and they're interested, they might still feel a little overwhelmed. There's a lot of information online about what we're saying here. There's other information online. I'm assuming you probably have some resources. They could reach out. Can you tell people where they can reach you, reach your team, and get some more resources?
Yeah, I am very active on Instagram, so that's the best place to like reach out, message me, all of that. My Instagram handle is at dr.dwyer, so dr.d as in dog, W-Y-E-R. Slide in my DMs, it'll be me that you're chatting with. So that's the best place. If you want to check out what we do, my website is teambdncoaching.com. It's kind of right here. We are going, oh wow, Zoom is still doing it. We are going through a bit of a website transition more into the functional messaging. So expect that to change soon, but those are the two best places you can find us.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put that in the description so people can just click through wherever they're listening. Before we hop off, do you have any final things you'd like to talk about we didn't discuss? Any parting words for everyone?
You know what? It's funny. I've had the same thing since I started doing podcasts a while ago. And even though I've transitioned into different, what was it, niches, I guess you could say, I still say that like everyone probably needs to drink more water. Everyone's dehydrated. Go drink more water. You're dehydrated. I see it all day long. We didn't even talk about hydration on this show, but oh my goodness, ladies, we cannot live off of iced coffee and a water bottle every day. 20 ounces of water. It's not going to work.
Yeah, get your, what is the thing now? Awala, I think is the trendy brand now of water bottle.
What is it?
Awala?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
like Hydro Flask, then Yeti, then you got all these bottles.
I don't own a Stanley, but like those trendy water bottles have been the best thing for hydration for women. I accept it.
Yep, for sure. Awesome. Well, it was great to talk to you, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, same. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening to that episode of the Assemble Performance podcast. Ashley was an awesome guest. I loved hearing her experience, her background, and her take on the health and fitness space, and I hope you did as well. If you want to learn more about her or her company, that's all going to be in the description below. And otherwise, I will see you guys in the next episode. I'm going to get back on track, back on schedule with more regular episodes, more solo episodes, more guests. So stay tuned for that, and subscribe on whatever platform you're on. That way you get notified when new episodes come out. Otherwise, all the links to contact me and see everything I have are also in the description. And I will see you guys in the next episode of the Assemble Performance podcast.